Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Game Hub. I'm your host, Gamer K, and it's 2023. Feels good to come kind of wash our hands with 2022 and embrace this new year. Hopefully, nothing shitty happens this year, like a lot of it did last year. But overall, there were some good things last year too. I did some new things, met some amazing new people, celebrated my 200th video at the end of last year, and had an amazing vacation with my family. And now that we're back, it's time for a new batch of videos, and some that were from years ago that I never got to. To start off this amazing year, I figured what better way than to start off the same way we start every single amazing video game that everyone's ever played. The boss fights that begin the game. Well, boss fights that don't exactly fully begin the game, but they're the first bosses where after a couple levels, we start learning the mechanics, we start learning how to use our weapons, our gadgets, our abilities, what have you, and battle the first threat we fight in our games. And all honesty, the first boss is the best part because in some games where you have to master or start a new game, these boss fights show you where you've got, how far you've come from the beginning section, and how interesting it is to fight them. And always, every time I complete a final boss, I always look back on the first boss that we do and how well we've grown from that. Now, it is a couple rules now. Rule number 1. Only games I've played and bosses I have beaten. I can't give a suggestion or opinion on something I didn't do personally. Rule number 2, one boss per series. So no Assassin's Creed bosses, no multiple Batman bosses, no multiple Kingdom Hearts bosses. Not really a rule, but how a criteria I'm doing as far as ranking these. Hang on, let's see. Games I played, 1 per series. That's basically the gist. Okay, so yeah, the one. Okay, so a big part of how I'm going to be ranking these bosses is that the I guess I shouldn't say like the closer they are to the start. I mean, because they are like the first boss we fight. So how am I gonna? I know how I'm doing it. I just don't know how to say it in words. So basically, from looking at this, how challenging the boss is also a factor, but also how, even for someone who played the game first, I mean, no. Basically, how the boss fights, as opposed to how. Yeah, you know what? I really don't know how I'm saying this. I'm just, basically, the more challenging and enjoyable the boss, compared to how we've had to progress throughout before the boss, that's a factor. So, yeah. But now it's time, enough of my jabbering, it's time for Gamer K's first top 13 first bosses. And to start off the new year, why the top 13? Because here at the Game Hub, only the odd can be number 1. Let's get this started. Cuphead. Definitely a game that you do not want to replay from the very beginning, unless you're a glutton for punishment. Otherwise, just replay the bosses. So, there were 2 choices for this part to start off the list. Either I start with Goopy LaGrande, who's, he's pretty easy boss, except for certain people who don't understand timing. Or we go with my choice, because this was the first boss I fought and the first one I chose. We have the Root Pack from Cuphead, obviously. One thing I love about this is is the fact that it's a very standard kind of boss fight in terms of what Cuphead gives us. The root pack definitely has a lot of strengths that teach people of what to do. For example, we have the potato in the first stage shooting out, I'm not sure what it is, to shoot out potatoes or dirt at us. And plus showing us how to do timing and their with the parry mechanic as he spits out a worm. Now he always does two potatoes and then a worm. So very easy first section. And then we get the onion, which if we start attacking him, he'll start crying, showing us that the attacks will also come from the top of the screen. Although if you don't attack the onion, you'll get a secret for the third section, which is an evil radish that will go Beyblade on you throughout on the ground. And then we have the psychedelic carrot, which will mind blast us and then telepathically send out carrots at us. The root pack is a great first start boss to the game, mostly considering everyone afterwards basically says, okay, so you've basically beat them. We're going to crank up the dial all the way to the 11, because that's what the root pack is. It's the very first stepping stone. The reason I put them at the bottom of my list, because much like a good majority of Cuphead bosses, I love their gameplay and their design, but since Cuphead doesn't really have that way going of story. Okay, yeah, I understand that they have a Netflix season, but it still doesn't correspond to the game. So yeah, they're on the bottom of the list because as far as, again, first bosses are pretty much easy and not that difficult to do. But when they don't have any, they don't have any dialogue, they don't have any backstory. So it's hard for me to put them higher because, yeah, they're simple, they're easy, and they've been uprooted. I was debating where to put this guy on the list, and then after replaying the game late last, right near the end of last year, I decided to put him near the bottom of the list. Because, okay, yeah, when I first played this game, it was insane, it was maddening, and also the boss fights weren't that great, considering there was 3 of them. But this one definitely makes it on the list because of his brute strength and absolute insanity that made a great series what it is now. Okay, I'm not putting in a lot of baneful helpful hints here, but if it doesn't, Bane from Arkham Asylum, guys. The very first boss of the Arkham series. And it's a pretty easy one. Pretty easy. And considering Bane broke the Batman, yeah, his boss fight is pretty much in the boiler room area of the medical building, which is an area which is much like the botanical gardens and the roof of the visiting area. Yeah, you're in areas that are only used for these boss fights, which I don't mind. But Bane's boss fight, yeah, although I do love the design. He's a skinny, drained up version first, and then he gets boosted with all the Titan. And, yeah, the boss fight is pretty simple. It's, I mean, I would have put him a little bit higher on the list, if not the fact that we technically do this throughout, after we beat him, we do this throughout the majority of the game half the time. Because his fights are just like how we deal with regular Titans. Titan enemies. Well, okay, enemies being a short thing, because we fight 2 Titans in the gardens. We fight 1 in the sewers. We fight 2 near the end. But yeah, basically he charges. We throw a batarang at him to get him to slant, to crash, and then we deal damage to him. Do this 3 times, and then the boss fight is over. Oh, Bane, the years were not kind to you, my friend. Although I will admit, in Origins, his boss fights get a lot better, considering we fight him 3 times. Once where there's no way we can possibly win, twice where we actually can beat him, and the third one is a game of hide and seek, and yeah, that is a different topic in and of itself. So yeah, it's done really, really well. So Bane, you started off our quest in Asylum, and yeah, he was a fantastic boss. Great way to start the whole, not just Arkham Asylum, but the entire Arkham series, where better boss fights came along. Except for a couple. Okay, I am going right into Nintendo right now, because coming up with a Nintendo boss, a very first boss, isn't easy. At the same time, it's not hard, but at the same time, I didn't want to do someone from like Super Mario Galaxy or any of the other Super Mario games. So I'm going to a series that I have loved, and I've beaten every single one except for Superstar Saga and okay, I beat Bowser's Inside Story and Dream Team. That's all I really loved about this series, so I don't care. Okay, so technically the first boss we fight in the Bowser's Inside Story, not including the tutorial of Bowser, because that's easy as heck. I'm not including our boss fight with Midbus, because yeah, it's pretty, yeah, we can't even win. I'm talking about the very first boss where Bowser learns not everything. I'm babbling. In order to get back his fire breathing, something's clogging up his fire pipes, which, oh my god, there is more inner body mechanics here that make no sense more than Osmosis Jones. Wow, I never thought I'd reference that movie until for now. Anyway, the first boss that we fight in Inside Story is actually a pretty fun one. It is the Sea Pipe statue, which has been transmogrified by Fawful. And this is actually a pretty interesting, cool boss fight. It teaches us how to do everything with Bowser's mechanics. From ducking with his shell, to punching, to doing the punch counter mechanic. And again, I do love this boss fight. For one thing, its attacks are very easy to telegraph. For one, if he shoots the blooper statue in the air, if he shoots it right at you, and absorbing it into Bowser and having Mario and Luigi deal some damage as well. And then we shoot it back out into the statue so it gets stuck, and then we can start wailing on it. And I do enjoy that. One thing I also enjoy about this boss fight is while it's in Bowser, as much as it will damage Mario and Luigi, it will drill into Bowser's body and cause him damage from the inside out, which I think that's one of the few bosses that actually does that during a boss fight. So yeah, it gets us started with Bowser's mechanics. It's a fun, unique boss fight. It's not a boss fight that lingers too long. So I'm happy about that. And it's one of those that isn't really, again, it doesn't linger. It doesn't overstay its welcome, much like this explanation. So I'm just going to cut right to the next boss. The sea pipe statue definitely did its job. Okay, I'm going to Mega Man because I haven't talked about Mega Man in a good hot minute in terms of bosses. And in terms of Mega Man, I really enjoyed 2 series growing up. The Battle Network series and the Star Force series. And I'm going to the second one in this. And What is it with all Mega Man basically having a fire guy be the very first boss? From Fireman or Torchman, if you watch the anime, which I prefer Torchman because it has a little bit more zing, to Blastman in Battle Network 6, to the pick for this list, Taurus Fire from Star Force 1. And I gotta admit, I knew nothing about what Star Force was going to be when I first got it. I wasn't really a kid. I was mostly like a teenager, almost teenager at the time. But it took what I knew about Mega Man and completely flipped it and made me love it even more. And Taurus Fire is a great first boss to showcase the ropes of the new format for boss fights. Basically, instead of doing a side panel view, basically it's a straight-on view where we can only go left, middle, and right. And while the boss can go all over the area, come at us, and everything. So basically, after being threatened to cut her brother band with him, Bud, who is the colloquial bully turned friend thing in Mega Man, and he's the big dude who's the bully and strong. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Dax and Gutsman. He becomes possessed by Taurus in order to become Taurus Fire. And I do love the design of it. He's basically the typical fire powerhouse ox guy. And his boss fight, his boss fight's pretty... It's not pretty simple, but it's at the same time not overly difficult. For a first fight, and for people who get their feet wet with the Mega Man battle, with the Star Force mechanics, it takes a while to learn what to do. Also because at this time, we don't have a lot of elemental battle cards. So, yeah, having to actually wind him down with attacks and actually hit your mark is pretty important. So yeah, and his attacks are great. He'll do a fire punch at you. He tackles you with his horns. He'll do a fire breath attack down a column. So yeah, Taurus Fire does a great job of being an amazing first boss for the Battle Network series. And it led to many more to come. And I love that. And what the hell with it. Yeah, I'm putting a gym leader from Pokemon on this list. But which one? Well, I'll give you guys a hint. One of the very first gym leaders we fight in the series. Well, not series. I'm talking about which game. And it's a rock type. Yeah, what is it with rock types being the first one? The first boss fight? It's like, oh, you picked fire? Okay, send in the rock guys. But yeah, the one I'm talking about with has a little bit more personality, has a little bit more of a interesting aesthetic. And he has one of my favorite Pokemon ever. Yeah, no, I'm not talking about Brock. I'm talking about Rorik from Diamond and Pearl. Rorik is interesting because he's not the typical rock gym leader, because we had Brock, who was there. I mean, I outside of the anime, I don't think he really has a personality. We have Roxanne, who's a teacher and that annoying nose pads. But Rorik is a guy who loves looking for fossils. And I really, really loved dinosaurs when I was younger. And the creation of Craniados is one of my favorite things to ever happen in Pokemon. It's based on a dinosaur that no one really knows that well. His design is so cute. It's so badass. And then when he turns into Rampardos, it's even better. But yeah, to start off, Rourke does still have the traditional staples for Rock Gym leaders, which is Geodude and Onyx. And I do and with the added advantage of abilities that Onyx using Double Edge half the time does not help at all. But yeah, he was one of my favorite first gym leaders because, yeah, he's a rock gym leader, but he does something a little bit unique with it. Like he's into fossils and digging them out, and Cranidos in his team. Yeah, it made, and all honesty, I'm going to be honest, yeah, you could have gone with Turtwig or Piplup, but going at this guy with your Chimchar as your first, and looking back at how far you came when it becomes an Infernape and one of your main members of your 6 when you take on the Elite Four and the champion, it makes you feel like you earned it that much. That's why Rourke gets on this list. He's a little bit lower because for me, much like a lot of Pokemon gym leaders, I don't really see as much personality in them in the game as I do in the anime. So, yeah, that's kind of a small gripe for me, but it is what it is. Okay, I'm going back to a game I talked to death about a lot. Puppeteer being one of my favorite series from PS3. Okay, not series, my favorite game from the PlayStation 3. I could have gone 2 ways with this. I could have gone with the Weaver first boss fight in chapter 1, or I could go with the boss fight that gives you the literal most challenge, which is again General Tiger, ladies and gentlemen. And General Tiger hits, being massive size for a boss fight, he literally has everything a first boss should have. A challenging fight, challenging mechanics, tells that you will really have to focus on. For example, electrifying his claw and spinning it when he hits the ground, swiping his claws, chomping down on the stage, using his mace tail. And also, it's the first QTE section we have in the game, so it starts that off well too. Another thing that I really love about this boss fight is how unless you pay attention to the surroundings, it definitely showcases how using the mechanics of the heads will help out in this boss fight. From destroying his mace tail, making it a fluff ball so that attack won't hurt you, to also using the Picarina head to immediately skip the boss fight and go right to the QTE section. I prefer to do those in order after I defeat the boss fight on my own because it makes me earn it. So yeah, last year was the year of the tiger, and this tiger starts off the year of the rabbit. I don't think there's a pun there. I just find it kind of coincidental. Okay, a game that I don't think a lot of people know, and I don't think a lot of Nightmare Before Christmas fans know about. Oogie's Revenge is the sequel game to the movie, like The Pumpkin King is the prequel to the movie, and it's just everything a Nightmare Before Christmas fan could want. Someone remaster this game for PS4 or PS5 or whatever. Remaster it, because it needs to happen. It's a gem. It's an iconic gem. And one of the best things about it are the boss fights. And Oogie's Shadow, being the first boss we fight in this game, is enjoyable. It brings us to that entire thing of this game, which is musical bosses and QTE. Oogie's Shadow doesn't really have that way of attacks. It will literally just throw dice at us, which we will have to hit. And we'll have to hit the shadow in order to deplete his health and to obtain those musical note counters. And I love how it's a reprisal of Oogie's Oogie Boogie song. And it's done very well, incorporating what's going on into the lyrics. It makes it enjoyable. And the QTE sections, the musical QTE sections, are some of my favorite parts of this game, even though I don't like QTE sections at half the time. But for a quick entry, Oogie's Shadow does what it needed to and prepares us for the insanity of the rapid QTEs coming on. So, Oogie Boogie, you're a gambling boogeyman, and you don't play fair, and it's very evident in the boss fights. All right, we're halfway up the list, guys, and I didn't think it would be this quick. Last year, I played Psychonauts 2 for the very first time, and it was an amazing game. It was fantastic. Everything about it hit hard. Go watch my review about it, or go to other YouTubers and talk to. I don't mind sharing the spotlight. But the one thing that I was not ready for was the first boss of the game, because from what I remember watching Psychonauts 1, I don't remember there being that many boss fights, so I didn't think there was going to be a lot in here. But no, the Lady Luctopus comes into play, and it's pretty interesting. Like, it's an amazing design, and through the story, yeah, we kind of screwed over Hollis's mind a little bit, so we gotta go fix it. Yeah. I do like the design of the boss, though, and the way she attacks with her tentacles and everything and throws things at us. The way we beat her is interesting, too. We gotta take stuff and throw them into the holes that are where she's holding our classmates as cards hostage, and then we gotta mind jump all the way behind her and shoot the inside of her head, which is pretty easy compared to how the other bosses fare in the game, which I really don't mind. But yeah, overall, the Lady Luctopus is the first boss. It's a simple boss. It's easy. But what makes her the halfway part of the list is just the atmosphere. This crazy... I mean, the casino is literally that we are at in real world is called the Lady Luctopus. So having Hollis's mind become the actual Luctopus is actually pretty ingenious. I'm not gonna lie. All right, we're back. We are with the swinging Spider-Man in the boss fight from Shattered Dimensions. The very first level we do is Kraven the Hunter with the amazing Spider-Man version. And it's actually really, really well done. The one thing I love about this, I'm putting both of his boss fights on the list because I kind of consider them both first bosses. For one, when we defeat some of his men and we are enclosed inside his little bone arena, he decides to fight us mano a mano with his blades. And I do like the little gimmicks that the stage do, like the spikes coming out of the ground half the time, fire. And then as we damage him, we get up close and personal and do the sections where we actually, and I do love this about Shattered Dimensions, go toe-to-toe with him, dodging his attacks, punching him, doing some damage. Also, that Jim Cummings voicing Kraven the Hunter is pure gold. I love it. If Kraven's in, I mean, obviously Kraven's going to be in the next Spider-Man game. They better have a good voice actor for him, or just get Jim Cummings to do it, guys. I'm just saying. And then it's the final boss fight with him in the end of the level where he absorbs the tablet's power, which gives him super speed. So this boss fight I like a little bit more because there are the pillars that come out where he will perch on, we can perch on. And there's a good And with his super speed and him throwing his blades, you do need to pay attention. So Kraven gives us our first fight at fighting the regular boss fights in the first half of the level, and then fighting the super powered versions at the end of the level. So I'm not gonna lie, it's fantastic. It's a great first boss fight for a great Spider-Man game, and I just hope he comes back to hunt us again. Wow, we're almost done the list without a Kingdom Hearts entry? Could it actually happen? Okay, yeah, no, who am I kidding? It's rarely happens. But who should I put on this list? Do I do the dark side from Kingdom Hearts 1 that cemented everyone's fascination with the boss fights of this game being the amazing hack and slash theme that it is? Or should I do the Ursula boss fight, which... Okay, I'm sorry. I couldn't say that with a straight face. I can't do that. I am doing the boss fight. Okay, I think I'm gonna say this. For those of you who don't know, Kingdom Hearts 2 was my very first indoctrination into the Kingdom Hearts series. And then as I got a little bit older, I got a copy of PS1 of Kingdom Hearts 1. I played it, still haven't beaten it. I never defeated Chernobog, never defeated Ansem. So, yeah, I'm that kind of sack. But Kingdom Hearts 2 created something that that was difficult for me constantly. And that is the very first boss I think of in the game. And that is in Day 3, the Twilight Thorn. The only nobody boss ever that is not a member of Organization 13. This thing is designed to mirror the dark side perfectly from the way it looks, but it moves like a dusk. And I love this thing. Its scarf tendrils can be used. It goes over the field and creates creatures with its head and those thorny little things where we have to reverse. There's more reversing in this boss fight than there is in a parking lot in New York. I'm not sure if that joke tracks, but you guys know what I mean. When I was younger, the Twilight Thorn was the boss fight that gave me my first challenge in the Kingdom Hearts series. And those reaction commands at the start, where we're doing that whole thing, they were all fantastic. And then actually fighting the thing was hard for me. It really was. I wasn't really good at those kinds of games back when I was younger. I mean, this was 2006, so I was like 12 at the time. But at the same time, defeating it gave me a big satisfaction that I'm in for a real treat in this game if this is the first fight I have to do. It's done perfectly, and overall, the Twilight Thorn, a lot better than Dark Side. Dark Side's been used to death constantly. So, yeah, Twilight Thorn, you made me into a Kingdom Hearts fan. And made me hate a majority of the bosses afterwards. Next. Okay, we're in the top 3, guys. And because it's one of my lists, the top 3 are going to be odd. For those of you who have been to either Disneyland or Disney World, there is one ride that is always somewhat entertaining and at the same time, god fricking annoying, and that would be the Small World ride. Why am I bringing this up for a boss list? Because for those of you who played Epic Mickey, the first boss we fight is the clock tower that's in Gremlin Village, which is based on It's a Small World. And this thing, it's enjoyable as a first boss. Having its giant hands being the main threat. One thing I love about this boss fight, we can either, like all the bosses in the Epic Mickey series, you can tackle them in two ways. One of them is thin away the paint armor that's on the arms, so that when it slams its fist, it will destroy parts of it, and do that on both arms, and then the clock tower will be broken, and it's basically done. Or, if you are the pacifist route like me, you can paint in the arms in order to freeze them up. Do that to both arms, and you can jump on the one arm. It will bring you up to the face and paint the face, and you will redeem the clock tower. Why is this number 3? Because, like I said, design is a key element for me when it comes to talking about bosses. And the design of this is ingenious. Whoever thought of the idea of taking the clock tower face that's at the start of the ride and give it giant mechanical arms is a genius. Also, the ways that you tackle it do fit with the layout of the game. Also, the entire boss fight, they have a twisted, warped version of It's a Small World. Not really in lyrics, but in music. How they make it creepy and slower. And it plays throughout the entire boss fight, so it creates a great atmosphere, showing that things are twisted and broken now. So, it's a really, really good time fighting this boss fight. So yeah, overall the design, the way you beat it, and that creepy, creepy music accompanying the boss fight definitely gives it an edge into this list. Okay. My number 2 goes to a boss from a series I didn't really beat, but I've watched the anime, I've watched videos of people playing it. I never thought a character I could hate so much would be this high on a good list. But then again, my favorite bosses list was kind of all over the place before I really knew how to do a good how to make good lists and videos. So, yeah. Representing the Sin of Lust, the second boss, my second number 2 boss fight is Suguru Kamoshida from Persona 5. Hold the guns, hold the shock. Let me explain. Being the first villain and the first area of the Persona series, of Persona 5, we are really shown right from the get-go how big of this guy is and how much we all hate him right from the get-go. Especially if you guys have watched the anime, where it kind of shows the depths of his cruelty a little bit more in the real world, and which makes that scene yeah. But overall, his boss fight at the end of the school Castle of Lust arc, it makes it, the boss fight is really imaginative. Having him taking his crown and transforming into the Osmodeus embodiment of lust, which is him being a giant pink demon with a cup, with his championship cup filled with women and having a mini version of On in his wine glass with a pitchfork and volleyball servants ready for him. The embodiment of lust is very paramount within this boss fight, and I do enjoy the theme and the overall creativity with the boss fight. Having him eat the women legs to increase his power and everything, which is lust, I guess. And plus he's got that long tongue that even Lick-a-Tongue would say, okay, dude, you have problems. Overall, and also the fact where we need to try to get the crown off of him in order to weaken him and make him more susceptible to our attacks. The way we do it is actually pretty ingenious. We have to send one member of our team, which at this point would be either... It's a 4. Yeah, 4, 5. Is it? 4, 5. 4 people team, which includes, the main character, Sakamoto, On, Ryuji, On, and Morgana. So we have to send one of them outside of us in order to intercept to get the crown by sneaking around. But here's the hitch. If you pick On, he'll immediately notice she's not in front of him. So that's not going to work. I always go with Ryuji because I think Ryuji earns having to do that to Kamoshida. And overall, the ending of the boss fight is really, really well done. Even though, again, he's one of the characters I despise the most in this series. And many, many other people do too. Outside of all the villains from Persona 5, Kamoshida is the one everyone agrees is the worst one. But enough about a bad guy being on top of the list. Let's go for a boss fight that is absolutely out of this goddamn world. Never did I think an indie game would get so high on a list for me. And again, being the first boss that we fight, literally, it's absolutely enjoyable. I don't even know how to over-explain this, as I normally do. But No Straight Roads, ladies and gentlemen, is the rockin' game of 2021 that I absolutely fell in love with. It was an indie game. It was something unique. It was something cool. And also, you being rock and roll and fighting other types of music that are EDM, that's amazing. And the very first boss we fight, DJ Subatomic Supernova, is this planetary-themed DJ who has his concerts at the observatory, which absolutely worked. And his boss fight is perfectly accompanies his theme, his music, and the location we're in. We are in observatory for astronomy. He's a DJ with a planet for his head and the solar system going around his jacket with headphones. And he moves like a DJ throughout the boss fight, where he's in the center, we're all around him, and he will use record scratch movements to send comets around us, which we will also have to parry in order to deal damage. They do an amazing job with this boss fight. And the fact that as the boss fight goes on, he gets larger and larger, encompassing like he is the center of the universe, being at the center of the battlefield with his DJ. Camera died. I had to charge it for a bit. One of the things I love about this boss fight is how his whole personality says that his music and him are the center of the world. And it encompasses that he is a planet head, being at the center of the battlefield with his DJ tables. And then as the game goes, as the boss fight goes, he becomes larger and the arena becomes more of a galaxy. So he's becoming the center of the galaxy, pinpointing in his kind of narcissism a little bit. And then for the final bit of the fight, we're running from him, and he's sending comets to us where we will have to parry in order to deal damage to him. And it's done very, very well. Again, it's a boss fight that's at the beginning of the game. Literally, we do the prologue stuff, and then we're thrusted right into the boss fight. And it makes sense of having a cosmic scale of an artist be our very first boss fight. It's done super well. The design is great. The atmosphere is fantastic. His attacks are great. And I can't say good things enough about this boss fight. I can't. DJ Subatomic Supernova is my favorite first boss because of everything I stated earlier. The atmosphere, his design, boss fight, how it integrates into the story. And it starts off for a great game. And that's it for the first video of the year, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you enjoyed this list. Like, comment, subscribe down below. And join me next week, ladies and gentlemen, where we're going full power, full stop, and another Power Rangers idea that's going to be, what's a good pun to do for this? Robotic? You'll see when I do it. This is Gamer K, logging out.